closeness in relationships with my family. That's been one of the biggest costs.
Jill Duggar recently released a book,
and so for truth's sake, we want to come out and set the record straight.
And in it, she revealed a lot of crazy things about Jim Bob.
But we don't believe honoring is the same as obedience.
Now, we found out what he thinks about the book, and what he apparently told Jill and the rest of the family will leave you speechless. Jill's new book is titled Counting the Cost, and it just came out. Her book isn't the only book the Duggar kids have released, but what makes this one stand out is just how raw it is. The book is almost entirely about Jim Bob, and let me just say, Jill did not hold back when she was writing this. She basically trashed her dad in the book, which, let's be honest, is completely fair. But what exactly did she say about him? Why is he allegedly so upset that he's threatening the rest of the family? One of the things Jill accused Jim Bob of is favoring her brother Josh. Apparently, this is something that she actually said to his face. This happened during a meeting between her husband Derek, her mom Michelle, and Jim Bob himself. They all met up to discuss Jill's difficult relationship with her parents. They even brought along a mediator with them. The mediator was supposed to oversee the conversation and help it stay on track, but despite their best efforts, it all blew up anyway. According to Jill, she wanted to explain to Jim Bob her side of the story. She wanted to let him know that she never meant to hurt him, but based on what she said in her book, Jim Bob didn't really let her speak. He supposedly had his own list of things that he wanted to talk about. He confronted her about one text message that she sent him. In it, she accused him of verbal harm. Jim Bob didn't like that, and he told her that he was really offended by it. He then claimed that she knew in her heart that wasn't right, and he asked her to apologize to him, but Jill didn't apologize. She just couldn't. She said that she sent the text because she wanted to make him understand how she felt, and she didn't think she could apologize for that. Apparently, this really shocked Jim Bob. He probably expected her to give up and say sorry immediately, but she didn't, and the way he allegedly reacted sounds really scary. According to Jill, his voice became really loud. Then he took a step toward her in a really aggressive way. Understandably, Jill started crying, but instead of realizing what he was doing to his own daughter, Jim Bob just used her tears against her. He apparently told her that the reason she was crying was because her conscience was talking to her. That's just a wild thing to say. She was trying to have a civil conversation with him and explain her feelings, but instead he just tried to intimidate her and blame her for everything. So I really can't blame Jill for accusing him of treating her worse than Josh. Jim Bob has seemingly always been on Josh's side. He always stood up for him, even after everything that Josh did. But for some reason, Jill doesn't get that treatment from her dad, which is just insane. But it gets worse, because another thing that Jill talked about in her book is money. She opened up about how she and Derek never got paid for being on Counting On. She said that at one point, Derek tried to approach Jim Bob and ask him for payment, but what Jim Bob allegedly said is unbelievable. Supposedly, he said that there was a point when Josh was getting paid, but that eventually stopped, because according to Jim Bob, it just wasn't a very good idea. After that, he changed the topic to something else. He clearly didn't want to actually share the money with his daughter. That's especially crazy considering that Jill and Derek were having financial problems. Jim Bob was extremely well off, but he still refused to pay his kids, even though the show was built around them, and they needed the money. His excuse was pretty weird too. What did he even mean by it not being a very good idea? And why was Josh the only one who ever got paid? How does that make any sense? Derek and Jill eventually got $175,000 from Jim Bob, but it didn't really make Jill feel any better. She still found the whole thing extremely sad, which is understandable. I mean, her own father treated her like she was nothing and didn't deserve anything. I know I shouldn't really be surprised at this point, but it's still so heartbreaking, and I just feel so bad for Jill. What's also crazy is that Jim Bob clearly still doesn't understand that a lot of this is his fault. Recently, Jill spoke to Today, and she said that after the news of her book came out, her dad decided to message the whole family. In the family's group chat, he said the situation was really sad, and then he apparently threatened all his kids. He said that if anybody spoke out against him or Michelle, they would be cut out of the inheritance. What kind of reaction is that? It really feels like Jim Bob is incapable of any kind of self-reflection. Does he think that he's always in the right about everything? I really don't get how someone can be so delusional. According to Jill, Jim Bob also said that they all owed their lives to Bill Gothard. Bill is the founder of the Institute in Basic Life Principles, which is the Christian organization that the Duggars grew up in. It's all just completely insane. Did he think that threatening everyone in the group chat would make Jill reconsider releasing her book? He clearly doesn't understand just how much his behavior hurt his kids. Mentioning the inheritance isn't going to fix things, and it clearly didn't scare Jill off, which I think is a good thing. I'm glad she was able to speak her truth and that she didn't let Jim Bob intimidate her. Jim Bob and Michelle also released an official statement about the book. In it, they said that they love all of their children very much and that they'd aim to deal honorably with them, their finances, and their other endeavors. That's pretty ironic, but they had even more to say. Jim Bob and Michelle also said that they didn't believe that the best way to resolve conflicts is through the media or in a public forum, and that's apparently why they won't comment on anything else. That's pretty wild. They are the same people who made their children grow up on TV for everyone to see, and now that the spotlight is on them, they seem to be against it. That seems pretty hypocritical, but at the same time, I can't say I'm surprised by their statement. I don't think there's much they could say in their defense, and refusing to comment is probably their best bet at this stage. Jill said that these days her relationship with her parents is complicated. She had to draw some strict boundaries to protect herself and her family. Her family with Derek is her #1 priority right now. So while she still loves her parents, she has to do what's best for them. I'm glad that she's been able to stand up for herself like this. I really wish that more of the Duggar kids were doing this. I mean, Jessa recently admitted on her Instagram that she and Ben do not follow the IBLP, but a lot of the Duggar kids still seem to be trapped under Jim Bob and Michelle. It's just heartbreaking. But what do you guys think about all this? What do you think about Jill's book? And what are your thoughts on Jim Bob's threatening text message? Let me know in the comments below.